A strange visitor, visitor. Suddenly, suddenly, a tiny, tiny ball of light flew in through the window. A strange boy flew in after it. He was dressed in feathers and leaves. Feathers and leaves. His name was Peter Pan. Tinker Bell, he whispered. The light flew over and landed on his hand. It was a fairy. What is it? She asked. Where is my shadow? Peter looked around the room. Tinker Bell's voice sounded like tiny bells. It is in there, she said. She pointed at a chest of drawers. Peter threw Tinker Bell into the air. He ran to the drawers and began to look inside them. Tinker Bell went to see what he was doing. Peter shut her in a drawer by mistake. At last, Peter found his shadow. It was folded like a piece of thin black material. Unknown to Wendy, Peter had visited her house before. He had come through the window one night. Nana had chased him and caught his shadow. She had folded it up and put it in the drawer. Peter was so happy when he found his shadow, but he did not know how to stick it back onto his feet. He tried to stick his shadow on with some soap, but it did not work. Peter began to cry. Wendy woke up. She was very surprised to find a strange boy in her room. Why are you crying? Asked Wendy. My shadow has come off, said Peter. I cannot make it stick on again. Wendy got out of bed. She went to her sewing box. She found a needle and some thread. Wendy sewed Peter's shadow onto his feet. Peter did not cry again, even though it hurt. Peter thanked her, and they introduced each other. Suddenly, Peter remembered Tinker Bell. He jumped up and let her out of the drawer. She was very angry. A real fairy, gasped Wendy. I have always wanted to see a fairy. Fairies began when the first baby laughed, said Peter. Its laugh broke into 1,000 pieces. Each piece became a fairy. Tinker Bell wanted to leave. We must go back to Neverland, she said. Neverland? Asked Wendy. What's that? It's where we live, said Peter. There are lots of boys there. They are called the Lost Boys, and they need a mother. Go with us, Wendy. You can look after the Lost Boys. I will teach you to fly. Wendy wanted to learn how to fly. Can John and Michael, my brothers, go too? She asked. Peter nodded. Wendy went to John's bed. Wake up, she said. It is time to have an adventure. She went to Michael's bed. He was the baby of the family. Wake up, she said. There is a fairy here to see you. John and Michael sat up and rubbed their eyes. Who is he? Said John. He pointed at Peter Pan. This is Peter. He will teach us how to fly, said Wendy. Fly, fly, said Michael. He bounced up and down on his bed. Then Michael fell off and landed on the floor with a bump. I can't fly, he said sadly. You need some fairy dust, said Peter. He took a small bag from his belt. There was golden dust in it. He shook the dust over Michael. Now move your shoulders, he said. Think about flying. Michael moved his shoulders. I will think about flying to the moon, he said. He flapped his arms. A moment later, Michael floated off the bed. He began to fly around the room. Peter shook some fairy dust onto John and Wendy. They began to fly too. John went up to the ceiling and bumped his head. Go with me to Neverland, said Peter. He led the children to the open window. One by one, they flew into the sky. Nana was far below them. She barked and barked, but the children were gone.